Hey guys, welcome to Double R Restorations. My name is Russell, and on this video we're actually starting to convert our Auto Twirler parts tree into a door dolly. Now, I had mentioned this in a previous video. We're actually going to build it in this one. This thing was built so you could take it apart, and what's going to happen, I'm going to have a bracket here that has an Acme rod through it, and this is actually going to be a lifting point for the bracket that's going to go onto the door shell to raise it. So I wanted this to be welded solid. Now I've got a pretty good little gap in here, so what I've done, I shimmed it up and then I've welded it, just put some tacks on it to kind of close the gap up, and we're going to go ahead and start welding it all the way across. But before we do that, I got to cut up some scrap and practice a little bit. This is probably not one of my strong points as far as fabrication. I've never really welded anything as far as large sheet metal. Sheet metal you guys have seen me weld is just like 20 gauge up to 14 gauge, and the Lincoln that I have, it kind of struggles at 14 and above, so I have upgraded the welder, and I got to tell you, first impressions, really nice welder. I've practiced a lot with some 20 gauge, and I don't really see a lot of difference on the low end, but on this 1/8 I can tell a big difference. And last night I was actually playing around with some 14 gauge, and it's amazing the difference on the top end. This is the 211, and I was using the 180, so we're at 30 more amps, and hopefully this works out pretty good. This is just the beginning stages. I don't know how it's going to turn out, and I'm kind of just I don't really have a set of plans. I've got some notes and measurements of the way that I had this thing kind of configured with screws. So I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants on this one. I'm going to bring you along, and we're going to see how it turns out. I tried every which way possible to get this gap all the way around even, and this post still be level. And this was the only way that I could get it level. So here's a good thing about having daughters. On these post levels, when you get them, it comes with rubber bands, but the rubber bands dry rot after a while. So I got to thinking, what could I use? And that right there is a hair bow. I actually don't think that this is level, and it's not. You can see it's pretty much over to one side. It's pretty close. Same thing there. So that's probably why that it worked out like that. Really puts a nice clean cut on the edge of it, and you can see that it's not hot. just, I mean, maybe a little warm, but not really. That's a real nice cut. Alright, so I'm real happy with this saw. I want to thank Kevin for giving me all the advice to help me make a decision on which kind to get. And this is a dry cut chop saw. There's a really nice blade on it. First time using one of these. Starting to get dark here. I'm going to go ahead and get this cleaned up. And we'll be back. Alright YouTube, another rainy Monday morning. So I'm going to make a few brackets that's going to house the Acme rod. I got a couple brackets here made up out of some angle, and I've got some holes drilled in them that line up. One of these will be a top bracket and one of them will be a bottom bracket, and the top one will weld to the bottom of this piece right here. This piece is going to be mobile up and down the post here, and the bottom bracket is going to weld to the bottom of the fixture here, and this will be stationary. This is what's going to house our Acme rod, which is right here. Put a coupler on this Acme rod right there, and I've cut just a short piece off of it. And the reason I did that is if I want to, I can go ahead and remove this Acme rod, at least the top portion, and I can still use this device as a parts tree to hang parts on and paint them and everything without having this rod in the way. We'll take this short piece of Acme, it'll go on the bottom bracket. I'll weld two washers, one on the bottom and one on the top. We'll have a little bit of space in between. That's going to allow this to be able to turn. The top piece will actually get a nut welded to it, and it will also get a nut on top of the Acme rod that is welded. This top nut is what we'll use to turn the Acme rod, and by turning the Acme rod, it's going to allow this piece right here to travel up and down the post. And basically it'll be adjustable height. You guys might remember I had built one of these out of wood. When I changed the wheels and tires, it threw everything off. Go ahead and tack some of this up and see if it works the way that I'm thinking, and then we'll go from there. Okay guys, I'm definitely going to need some practice on welding this thick stuff. It looks like it's hot enough, it's just my technique. But we'll get it. on top. Okay, YouTube, you know what they say. If you don't like your welds, grind them. And I have ground those. I need a little bit more practice on laying the bead down, and right now I'm using the welder on the auto set mode, and I think for some of this I could probably fine tune it a little bit better. I'm not going to go any further with the welding until I can get it dialed in a little bit more and get my technique down a little bit better. But I did want to get this part done today, the 2 brackets with the Acme rod, and we're going to try it out, see if it works. Alright YouTube, so I was actually cleaning up here and looking at this thing, and I was like, I just don't like it. What's to keep this coupler from coming basically unscrewed from one of these rods when you're turning it? And wasn't real sure what to do, and then I got to thinking about it. I had bought a couple extra Acme nuts, and I thought, well, we could jam nut it like on a tie rod or something like that. So I thought, well, it might work. Sure enough. Okay, so I've got this center section the way that I like it, and I brought it over here and I put it up against the door, and I wanted to give you an idea of kind of the vision I've got in my head for this thing. So there'll be 2 sets of posts. There'll be a top set and a bottom set, and on those posts we'll utilize these that actually came with the parts tree. Everything will be fully adjustable, and we'll be able to lock it down with these bolts. I may end up shortening the length of this bar just so I can pull it a little closer to the door. But what'll happen, you'll have the post that's coming out at the top. These will slide onto it. You'll be able to hook into the door, and the top ones are going to be for basically raising and lowering the door. The bottom ones, they'll just go and push up against the door. That adjustment is going to be to move the door out or move it in. I did go ahead and lower that bracket with the jam nuts and everything on the Acme rod. It kind of raised up my minimum lowest position there, so I had to go down a little bit further on the post. On my 81 Camaro, this I have to be raised just slightly to get it to work, and actually on the 72 it have to be raised a couple inches. The 72 actually setting up a little bit higher right now, but I think this is going to work. The only thing that I'm really not happy about right now is the amount of play that I have between this outside post and the inside post. You can see that's kind of excessive, so I'm not real happy about that. However, I've got some 14 gauge pieces of scrap right here, and if I put that in there on this top side, it takes it out perfectly. And if I put pressure down here on the bottom as if that was shimmed, and I just barely have a little bit of movement, which I believe is perfect. It's enough movement that it will turn okay. Actually, it will turn really easy. And turn it by hand here. You can see the tubing starting to rise. So I don't really want to shim this whole center post here with 14 gauge metal. What I'm thinking about doing is making me 4 shims for the inside of this outer tube. And I tested it. I won't be able to get the nozzle of the welder down into there, but I do happen to have some of that panel bond left over where I was doing some testing with the trim studs. So I thought maybe I could get my belt sander in here, clean it up, and bond those shims to the inside of this tubing. Can get a clamp in there, so we'll clamp that, let it set up. I believe it would be fine. That's kind of what I'm thinking. But I like the way it's turning out. So we'll be adding some gussets. I was talking to Kevin last night and going to make some gussets to go in to this part and on the bottom here, just to kind of strengthen that. Something else that I'm thinking about doing is once I figure out a comfortable working height, say I have a door on that stand and I've got it raised up to where maybe I'm blocking on it or something, I may drill a hole all the way through both tubes so that I can put a bolt and a nut through it, lock it down, and just take a little bit of the pressure off of the Acme. So guys, I'm gonna end the video here. And you know, a lot of times on YouTube you see these projects and then they're done at the end of the video. So I thought we'd just break this up into two parts, and maybe one of you guys is seeing something that I'm not seeing. So we'll go ahead and break it here as part one. And I'm gonna be going out of town to a rod run there at Pigeon Forge. I'll be posting some pictures of that on my Instagram account. Next week we'll be back on this door jig. I want to thank everybody for watching, and we'll catch you on the next one.